I'm warning you not to make this mistake about Russia. You know, really upsets me when people don't take the news that come out of Russia seriously. A Russian senator says something ridiculous, and everyone says, well, oh, he wasn't serious. He was just saying that. Not a big deal. Don't take it seriously. For example, the Russian senator Milonov suggesting that all Harry Potter fans should be sent to be evaluated by psychiatrists mandatory. And he said, he says many other things. And I mentioned that in a live stream, and I get tons of replies. Oh, Konstantin, you shouldn't take him seriously. Why do you spread this news? It's a joke. He didn't mean that. He was just saying that. Definitely didn't mean that. And I can give you a dozen of examples like that from the top of my head. But I always take everything that comes out of Russia, even if it can be classified as a joke or nonsense or spring is an exacerbation, I will take it seriously. And here's the proof for you. Check this out. About 6 weeks ago, a former Rostov deputy of Rostov Legislation Assembly, a former public servant, Yevgeny Fedyaev, proposed consecrating, basically performing exorcism, the province government building to protect against corruption and exorcise demons. He proposed that after the former city manager Lagvinenko was fired, there was too much sin and demons were left in the building after Lagvinenko left. Very funny. Yes, I did get quite a few replies. Oh, Konstantin, he didn't mean that. Oh, come on, he was just saying. After I shared that on the live stream, I didn't like this response. Again, I take everything seriously. This crazy man, Fedyaev, wasn't serious. He was joking, right? He didn't mean what he said, right? Well, look at what happened in Kursk province government building after the former Kursk governor Alexei Smirnov was arrested, moved to Moscow, and charged with corruption just 4 weeks after Fedyaev proposed to exorcise demons in Rostov. The current Kursk governor, Hinstein, listened to Fedyaev in Rostov and acted. Check this out. The new governor, through Russian Church, Pope, and the exorcise demons. Yeah, let me show you again. He called a Russian priest from the Russian Church. He ordered to perform exorcism in the governor's office to rid of the sins accumulated in the walls of the government building and of the demons. And the official ceremony of exorcism was officially performed by the Russian Church, officially by a Pope. Just look at this. So, friends, I warn you, always take everything that comes out of Russia, Russian officials, authorities, politicians. Always take that seriously. Howdy, everyone. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Welcome to Inside Russia, the weekend edition. Welcome to Sunday. Every weekend, I give you crazy news update, straight out of the mad circus that Russia has unfortunately have become. But first things first, there is no such absurdity that cannot be realized in Russia these days. Please remember that. And the news, I call them crazy news from Russia. the news of Russia that matter and that you will not find in any mainstream media. These crazy news are a good indicator of what's happening in the country. Just one thought, one thing before I start. I want to apologize for sarcasm. I try to use sarcasm. Sarcasm is my way of staying sane. Without sarcasm in this news, I'd go crazy. Now, let's jump straight to the news. It's a good tradition to start weekend reports with the good news. And I have plenty of those today. A week of good news from Russia. The good news galore. There have recently been so many bad news coming out of Russian economy that the prices are going up. In general, life for many people is getting tougher. But there's also good news in that, because not for all. Life in Russia is getting tough, not for everyone. Some Russians are actually doing quite all right. For example, this fella right here, Andrei Patrushev, almighty powerful former Grey Cardinal Nikolai Patrushev's son's company earned 8 billion rubles last year. Andrei Patrushev, the youngest son of Vladimir Putin's aide and former KGB head, Nikolai Patrushev, owns shares in two large companies. Arkhangelsk Commercial Seaport, he owns 10% of that, and Transtelesoft owns 6.25%. In 2024, these companies' combined revenues increased by 15% and reached to 7.9 billion rubles, or close to $100 million. Net profit exceeded 2.1 billion rubles, or approximately $25 million. Patrushev Jr. is engaged in private businesses. He travels abroad with diplomatic passport. Sometimes he travels with his father. Patrushev Jr. used private jets for direct flights from Russia to the European Union as long as it was possible. And Andrei Patrushev was still not included in the European Union sanctions list. So you see, at least some people in Russia are doing well. That's the good news. But I have more. Not just some Russian people, but Russian industries. Well, some companies in Russian industries are actually doing quite well. Some companies come up with new product. They come up with new technological thought, the cutting edge stuff, okay? The good news. Russian car manufacturer giant AvtoVAZ, the maker of the famous Lada cars, we talked about them before, has unveiled a new car, a new model. To bring elegance and style, AvtoVAZ brought in the famous Moscow design bureau called Bang Bang Education. Yes, the one that designed the Moscow Mule. This beauty. Please forgive me for bringing the Moscow Mule up in my live streams quite often. I just like that car so much that I try to show it as much as possible. The Moscow Mule is the crown of design thought of Russia's automobile design. I mean, check out this beauty. The Moscow Mule for you. Well, I think that something new has been introduced to the Russian market that can outshine the Moscow Mule. Please meet the Cyber Lada. Ta-da-da-da-dum! The elegance, the high style, the new design trend. I think it'd be foolish not to try to sell this beauty on the European and American markets. BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Cadillac, push away. A new competitor is in the house. A new competitor is coming to dealer showrooms near you. Of course, it'd be sold at premium. Hey, the high style commands high prices. But I'd be concerned if I were you. And by the way, friends, if you want this beauty, Cyber Lada, in your garage, write me in the comments down below after this live stream ends. I'll send all the requests made in the comments to AvtoVAZ. You'll be first in line to buy one. How about that? Yes, check it one more time. The Cyber Lada. Please forgive me. I think I might order one for myself. There's another good news. That's actually crazy good news. Russian tourism is growing. More companies, more brands, more countries, more traffic, more directions of tourism. In Russia, a new travel agency called the Taliban Tour is planned to open to organize trips to Afghanistan. An application for registration of the trademark, the Taliban Tour, has already been submitted to Rospatent. That's the agency that does registering. Now, this news is so crazy that at first I thought that's gotta be a fake. I mean, there's no way. There's just no way, okay? Even in the world of crazy Russian news, this news seems so crazy, it doesn't fit into the crazy news, right? The Taliban tours. Well, I'll remind you, just in 2024, in May, 1 year ago, Russian government was issuing statements. Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued statements, multiple statements that advised Russian citizens from traveling to Afghanistan. Now, 1 year later, in April of 2025, there's Taliban tour in Moscow, and it's being registered, and a new product, a tourist product, is being offered. Okay, there's no way. And I check, because this is what I always do. I fact check, and this is what I come up with. This is TASS, Russia's premier and largest propaganda agency. And the Taliban tour turns out to be true, because this is TASS. They don't lie. Well, they do all the time, but not in the way that they say something that doesn't exist. Okay. A Russian businessman has submitted the application for the Taliban Tour brand. He has plans to bring those Russians who fought in Afghanistan back in the 80s to Afghanistan, to the places where they fought. So basically, TASS confirms. They say that is true. The brand is being registered, and there's a businessman, and he is offering a new product or talking about it. So he's selling, or will be selling, these tours to 60 to 65-year-old men who fought in Afghanistan. The opportunity to remember their youth, to visit places of military glory. That is the war. Friends, this is real stuff. This is not a fake. Those Russians who killed the Afghanis, okay? Is that called military glory these days? What are they going to do there? To see what exactly what? To talk to those, the relatives of those that they killed? Now, if we move further a little bit, you will see that TASS itself says that, well, he quotes Andrei Serenko, that's a businessman, says about a year ago, in May 2024, the Russian Foreign Ministry officially and strongly recommended that Russian citizens refrain from traveling to Afghanistan. And now, 12 months later, Afghanis and the Taliban are our friends. Okay, so also, this article says the experts do not take the tourism direction seriously. Don't forget what I told you. Never don't take things that come out of Russia seriously. Always, always take them seriously. Remember the example? 6 weeks apart, some crazy psycho says one thing in a newspaper, and 6 weeks after, it's done by a governor of another province. Okay, so always take things seriously. And I think this crazy businessman actually will succeed. His brand, the Taliban Tour, will be registered, and he will be taking some crazy tourists, males of 60 or 65 years old, who fought in Afghanistan and killed Afghanis, to Afghanistan. Will they come back from Afghanistan? Well, we'll see. Boy, I don't call this news crazy news for nothing, Let's move to the more serious news. Enough of the good news. The World of Tanks. Now, have you heard of this before? It's world's largest tank simulator game, designed by a company called Lesta Games. Yeah, this company right here. Lesta Games. We design the World of Tanks and other games. We create worlds and unite people through games. Now, Lesta Games is a new company and an old company at the same time. Lesta Games was a division of Wargaming.net, the giant company with roots in Belarus. Okay, and before that, Lesta was independent, and Wargaming bought Lesta Games a long time ago. So Lesta Games was founded in 1991. But after Russia attacked Ukraine, Wargaming.net moved to Cyprus and made Lesta Games an independent company with location in Russia. They did that to keep the Russian market, because the Wargaming.net made it clear it stood with Ukraine. Okay, and Lesta Games rebranded the World of Tanks into Mir Tankov and has been operating it for the last 3 years, until now. The Prosecutor General Office of Russia has demanded to ban the activities of Lesta Games in Russia due to the company's owners committing extremist activities. Those extremist activities aren't explained in details. Neither they're justified. Of course, evidence, justification, and reasoning is not needed today in today's Russia. But we'll understand what those extremist activities are. Disliking Russian government and leadership, speaking against the war, etc. That's enough to have labeled you as extremist. And that's what's called extremism nowadays in Russia. So the prosecutors want to shut down Leicester Games, right? No. Nope. They don't want to shut it down. The Prosecutor General's office demands to turn 100% of the developers' shares to the state. In plain English, they are using this excuse of extremism to take over the company, to steal it from the rightful owners. They are going after the company using extremism as an excuse to steal it again. I'll repeat it again. And they will steal it. Mark my words. The court will rule in favor of prosecution, and the ownership will be transferred to the state. And later, the state will transfer it to somebody else. In the upcoming weeks, I will make a video, well, in this upcoming week, I will make a video explaining these criminal schemes of stealing assets, stealing companies with help of Russian state. And believe me, there are customers who order such theft. You know, the new owners of this game developer, this old company, perhaps competitors, perhaps, you know, just generals who would like to have a game developer in their portfolio, they have ordered the theft of this company. I will explain that in details in the next in the upcoming live stream, so please stay tuned. Another piece of news is about lies. Russia has finally admitted that it was lying. Well, it's not the first time, and I think it's not the last time, but it happened this past week. During a report to Vladimir Putin on April 26, the Chief of General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, admitted that North Korean soldiers had fought alongside the Russian military in Kursk province. Before, North Korean soldiers in Kursk? Nonsense! Propaganda, Western lies. Now, the North Korean army courageously fought in Kursk alongside our soldiers. I have a big question now. If North Korean army can fight alongside Russian army in Russia, then why Russia is fiercely denying the right of Ukraine to invite a foreign army to fight alongside Ukrainians in Ukraine? A good question, right? Why the hell no one is asking that? All right, there will be continuation of this situation. This is just the first stage of this news, so to speak. This is another moment when I want you to mark my words. We will check them soon. In 2 weeks, on May 9th, there will be a military parade on the Red Square in Moscow, and Vladimir Putin will invite Kim Chen-in, and Kim will be standing right next to Putin, well, behind Putin, but somewhere close. Because, and the North Korean soldiers, of course, will participate in the parade as glorious ally of the Red Army, of the Soviet Army, you know. Will be marching on the Red Square, you know. Mark my words, please. Unthinkable just a few years ago, in a reality now. What a shame. All right. The next piece of news is kind of odd, even for Russia. Russians have started giving up on vodka. Yeah, I know. Don't throw rocks onto me, okay? This is the news. This is real stuff, real deal, all right? According to Ross Business Consulting, the sales of vodka have dropped to a minimum in the last 5 years. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, the demand for vodka dropped by 8.7%. This is huge. It doesn't happen in real life, okay? The official reason given for this phenomena, and this is a phenomena for Russia, the price increase, number one, there are two reasons. The first is price increase because of the increase in the excise tax and the increase of the taxation, the taxes, the rehaul of the taxation system that took effect on January 1st, and everything drove vodka prices up. And the second reason, the transition of consumers, the drinkers of vodka, to other types of liquor. Now, I want you to understand this. Russians have not slowed down drinking. Then they drink more than ever these days. And I have the official data on the sales of alcohol, and the vodka sales have dropped. But unfortunately, I don't have official data on how much they actually drink, okay? What I see around me, what I hear, what I see in videos, people tell me Russians are drinking like there's no tomorrow. People drink more and more and more. A lot of people have trauma and they're trying to forget about that just for a bit. The best way to do that, to get drunk, all right? So, and the vodka has always been the cheapest solution to forget about the harsh reality of your life, how your life sucks. The cheapest, easiest way. Now, Russians aren't drinking less, but they just drink less vodka. As the industry experts noticed, the Russians are moving to other types of liquor, and that I believe. I wonder what kind of liquor is that? What are they drinking instead of vodka now? Perhaps French cognac? Or Irish single malt whiskey? Or Italian grappa, perhaps? Wine? Well, it's not hard liquor, but it's not liquor, but it's still alcoholic, pretty good stuff. Now, I tell you what Russians have moved to. Moonshine! I saw them drinking moonshine in the USSR like there was no tomorrow due to the deficit of vodka. Vodka, simply, you couldn't get it at the stores. And I see the history repeating itself right now. Right now, there's vodka at the stores, but the Russians just can't afford it. At least some of them. And they start either buying moonshine that somebody else made and selling definitely cheaper than vodka, or they start making their own. And I know well, my father used to distill moonshine. Back in late 80s, things were so bad that, my father never drank, but he did make moonshine. He used it as currency. He used it to barter for things. To get a plumber to come to our house, we would have to do a registration and wait for weeks, not for 10 years, to wait for an electrician or a plumber, just like in that Reagan anecdote, but a couple weeks, yes. And if you needed a plumber to come quickly, you just tell the plumber that he would get liquid currency for his work. You'll see him in 5 minutes. That's how things worked in the USSR. Liquor, moonshine, was the barter tool, and it was strictly legal. I remember my uncle was helping my father, and every time they would have this distilled session, and you can imagine it's like a 2-bedroom apartment, a tiny one, a tiny kitchen, and they would put a blanket over a window in our apartment so no one would take binoculars and peek in and would see that my father was making moonshine, because they'd call cops. That and then there was a strictly illegal activity. All right, I lived through that. I remember that. It wasn't pretty, and now it's happening again. The history in Russia is repeating itself. Russians just don't learn from their mistakes. Good luck to you, comrades. Bottoms up. Moving on to how to how to name the next news. A news of a military, or anyway, the court found the former commander of the 58th Army, General Ivan Popov, this guy right here, guilty of fraud. Let me remind you the story of General Ivan Popov. I talked about him quite a few times in the live streams, but a long time ago. Ivan Popov was just sentenced to 5 years in prison and stripped of his military rank of general and all honors he received. It is a very important piece of news that explains today's Russia. Now, let me remind you the story of General Ivan Popov. He was perhaps Russia's best general. He cared for his soldiers, he was educated, smart, straightforward, honest, and then the war happened. And he was given order to lead his army into Ukraine and invade Ukraine. You know, setting aside all the good qualities he had, he was an invader. He was fighting the Ukraine in Ukraine. He was killing Ukrainians. He was giving criminal orders. All right? The point I'm trying to make here is that he was one of Russia's best generals. Last summer, after Putin replaced Russian Minister of Defense Shoigu with a nobody, Belousov, there was a purge in the leadership of the Russian army. One of the generals arrested was Popov. He was guilty of speaking the truth at the general staff meeting of the poor state of Russian army and its problems, and he went public. He spoke directly and criticized the chief of staff Gerasimov harshly, accusing Gerasimov of lying to Putin, sugarcoating things, and simply lying to Putin about the real situation in the army. And at that particular meeting, where he accused Gerasimov, he promised that he would be seeking a personal meeting with Vladimir Putin directly if Gerasimov kept on lying. Soon after, Popov was arrested, and 1 year later, he is sentenced to a long prison term. And if I were him, I'd stay away from prison windows. I know there are steel bars on them, and you can't really open them. Hey, it's still risky in today's Russia. One less general in the Russian army. That's good news for Ukraine, good news for the war. Now, there will be other generals in the news today too. Wait until the end of this live stream. The story of General Popov paints you a picture of what's going on inside Russian armed forces. Do you still believe that Russia can win the war in Ukraine? The next piece of news is straight out of the mad circus, okay? If I were writing a book about my news, this probably would be among the top crazy news. One of those news that when I saw it, I thought it was a fake or a joke right away. It's just no way it can be true again. It doesn't happen in real life, right? But no, it's real. Reported by Interfax, Russian news agency. Check this out. The head of Ministry of Agriculture was promised to present bananas grown in Russia by the end of 2025. Andrei Platonov, the general director of the non-commercial foundation called the Subtropics of Siberia, also the chairman of the Council of Farmers Union of the city of Sochi, announced that he has planned to begin growing tropical and subtropical crops in Siberia in the far east of Russia. He announced a plan to create the greenhouses in Omsk province in Siberia and grow lemons, tropical and other tropical and subtropical crops. Here's the proof. You are looking at it right now. This is a screenshot. I don't think anyone would come up with this because this is so insane. I quote Platonov, in addition to building and testing greenhouses with tropical and subtropical crops, we also plan to plant about 1 hectare of tea in Siberia and see how it will grow there. I end quote. Platonov also promised the Minister of Agriculture, Oksana Lut, I love the name, I don't know how about you, but Oksana Lut, to present her with bananas grown in Russia, in Siberia, by the end of 2025. Oops, check this out. Platonov reported that bananas were recommended for cultivation in Russia back in 1906. I don't know. I need to take a sip of this wonderful English breakfast tea. Okay. Sounds crazy. And, well, it does. It does. Is it possible? I mean, is it technically possible to grow something tropical like bananas or tea in Siberia? Probably yes. And human beings can do a lot these days. In theory, if so much resources are gathered and applied, we can send a rocket to the moon and somehow build a moon lunar city and grow bananas there. We can do that if we really put all our minds and money and resources and labor into this topic. And in 100 years, we probably can do that. So in theory, we can build giant greenhouses can be built in the middle of Siberia where snow is on the ground for 9 months out of the year. Yes, those greenhouses would use enormous amount of energy to grow palm trees, banana trees, to grow tea, for example. It is possible. But why would you do that? Why don't you just, if you really want to grow that bad, go to Sri Lanka, buy some land and grow tea there. Very good climate for that. Or in India. But why do you want to grow tea in Siberia and bananas in Siberia? Just buy bananas in Ecuador. So why would you want to grow? Imagine how much those bananas and that tea would cost. An arm and a leg. Literally. Okay? So it doesn't make any economic sense. But please don't disregard these good Russian new makers, all right? It doesn't make any economic sense if you think in a normal way of thinking. If you think in real life terms. Don't forget, there is a Russian way of thinking. And I'll try to explain, because it took me a while to kind of, spin the situation, look at it at different angles, and I understand that everything this guy Platonov said is truth. It's absolutely true, okay? Let me explain his logic. This fella Platonov is a big guy in a very small place. He's pretty much a nobody. Is a farmer in Sochi, all right? A respected farmer, and he heads the association of farmers, fellow farmers in Sochi, but he's not a big deal. So this Platonov is ambitious. He wants to make it big. He wants to go to Moscow. He wants to make money. And he comes out with a plan. He promises to grow those tropical crops, tea and bananas, in Siberia among snow. Well, his non-profit needs a lot of money for that. And I mean, construction in the middle of Siberia is expensive. A lot of electricity will be used. Heat, that's expensive. Heat generation, or buying heat from a local heat source, from a power plant. Then labor in Siberia is also expensive. Then you need a lot of planning, a lot of engineering. You need very highly qualified professionals to do that, and it hasn't been done anywhere before. I mean, you need lots of money for that. So he comes to the Minister of Agriculture, Lut, sells her the idea, and she looks at it and she buys it. So now her way of thinking is this. She gives money to this non-profit, and of course the non-profit will steal the money immediately. Okay, that's... Platonov probably wants money, and then he'll use a little bit to build something in the middle of Siberia, try to show it as greenhouses, but 90% will go to his, well, not to his pocket, but to companies somewhere in Cyprus, let's say, So now, of course, that money in Cyprus will be split between Platonov and the minister, and there's money made there, right? Then, after some time, let's say in December of 2025, they buy the Ecuadorian bananas and tea from Sri Lanka that is sold at a local store in Sochi or in Moscow, whatever. And then the Minister of Agriculture will take that tea and bananas and will present Putin these crops, this wonders, as domestically grown in the middle of Siberia, in the snow. Literally. Cutting-edge agricultural tech in Russia. Russian-made, Russian-grown bananas, Russian tea. And Putin will look at it and he'll love it. You say, you are wonderful. Thank you. This is the win of my system. Now we grow bananas in the snow. Now we grow tea in the snow. Great. And both Platonov and the minister will make lots of money, because the money will come from the federal budget to build all this infrastructure for growing in bananas and tea. So they'll make lots of money. They'll buy, they'll use that money to buy chateaus in the south of France, perhaps the condos in Miami Beach, At the same time, they will score points with Vladimir Putin. The Minister of Defense will probably continue being the Minister of the Minister of Agriculture will probably continue being the Minister of Agriculture for quite some time, probably get a medal, and that fella, Platonov, probably would be made some kind of a big shot in Moscow, perhaps Deputy Minister of Agriculture, perhaps they'll give him a large non-profit to develop more technologies of growing subtropical crops in the snow or things like that, Oh, so it's really a win-win-win for everyone. It's a win for Platonov, it's a win for the minister, and it's a win for Putin, okay? And even if Putin would understand, would know, would learn that, of course, there's bananas in the tea they don't grow in snow. Still, he would sell it, his propaganda machine would take this as a fine product and sell it to Russian people, and Russian people will be happy. They will buy it. Okay, so it's a win-win-win for everyone. There's just one party that's a loser, and that party is Russia's taxpayers. But they have been picking up the bills for projects like that for the past 25 years, and lately the bills have been absolutely astronomical, because from just the bills of stealing, they became the bills of war. And I absolutely love this news. This is a legit piece of news. It really happened in Russia. And I'm going to be watching this banana business and tea business in Siberia very closely. And you know what? I should give you more details and make a live stream out of this news to show you in more details how these systems, how these schemes work in a country called Russia. So please stay tuned. Before I jump to the next news, I want to take a little pause, take a sip of this wonderful English tea. Oh, wait a second. This is Twinings English breakfast, extra strong. I wonder if they grow it in Siberia, among the snow. Kind of tastes like it's grown like in Sri Lanka or India. What do I know? You know, Platonov and the Minister Lut, they know better. Anyway, I would like to thank you. Thank you for being inside Russia, a part of Inside Russia community. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for being subscribed to my channel. And just thank you for supporting me. Your emails come with good words. They make me feel very good. Your prayers are much appreciated, and I'm so grateful for you praying along with me and for me. And thank you so much for your love. This community is the best thing that happened to me recently. Thank you. Thank you for buying me coffees at buymeacoffee.com. Thank you for supporting through PayPal and Patreon. Your support shows me that you value my work highly. Just know that inspires me and gives me energy to move forward. I promise you, every single day, monetized or not monetized, I've been demonetized for 8 months now by Google for my stand against Russian government. So it doesn't matter. I will be here and I'll be telling you the truth. So friends, thank you so very much. Now, the next news will be of a few news of Russian economy. Now, I don't have to talk much about what's going to happen in the Russian economy any longer. I don't forecast much. I just tell these days of what happens every day. And that's enough. And this is what I'm going to do right now. Now, the first piece of news, the economic news, is of payments, interbanking payments. There's a system of fast payments among, among Russian banks in Russia. It's called СПБ, Система быстрых платежей. It's basically a system that allows a person, not a company, but a person, to send any amount from his or her bank account using telephone to any recipient, and recipient receives it in seconds. It's a very convenient system, and it's been wildly popular among Russian people since it was introduced, I believe it was like about 10 years ago. So every single year the system grew. The volume of payments that were conducted through the system grew. every single year, every single month. So, and this system of fast payments went into decline for the first time in history. In the first quarter of 2025, the volume of transactions through the fast payment system fell by 1.3 trillion rubles to 22.6 trillion. The decrease has affected everyone. All people, both people and companies. I guess companies can transfer, can use this fast payment system as well. This is one of the hidden but very sure and very strong indicators of what's going on in the economy. In plain language, people have started sending less money. They have less money now. Whatever money they have, they try to save. They don't spend. In this system, I mean, you cannot hide the amount of money that is being transferred. And the system of fast payments shows it. It's like a photo film. It shows that decline is there. This, in plain language, it reads the decline. The next piece of news is about population of Russia. Now, it's also very interesting news. It didn't come from Russia. It came from outside Russia, but it's of Russia. 860,000 people left Russia in 2022. This is a new study by scientists based on big data. Scientists from Meta, the universities of Hong Kong and Harvard, analyzed the movements of 3 billion Facebook users using anonymized data. They determined where a person lived by their IP address, which country, and profile activity. If someone spent at least a year in one country and then moved to another, this was considered migration by the UN standards, United Nations standards. Russia is one of the leaders in population outflow. The authors of the study estimate that in 2022 alone, that was the year when the war in Ukraine began, 860,000 people left Russia, making it one of top 3 countries with the largest net population outflow. Only Ukraine, India, and Pakistan are ahead of Russia. Russia is number 4. The main migration destinations are described as the European countries, Kazakhstan, Armenia, Georgia, Turkey, and Israel. And this is right on. This is, this is what the scientists say. And now, I have been a part of this exodus. I left Russia in 2022. I saw thousands of people around me fleeing as fast as they could. Okay, and these are the countries that, pardon me, I considered myself, because they are the easiest, or at least in 2022, they were the easiest to go to. Kazakhstan, visa-free with Russia. Armenia, visa-free. Georgia, visa-free. Turkey, visa-free. Israel, visa-free, And then you couldn't buy a plane ticket to any of these countries because everything was sold out for weeks. 860,000 Russians left. Don't forget, these scientists only counted people with active Facebook profiles. And imagine how many more left Russia who didn't use Facebook that often or at all. The exodus. I've been calling this the exodus, and that's what it is. The next piece of news is also important. It's an indicator. It's one of the faces, actually, of economic tsunami I've talked so much of. In the first 3 months of 2025, the volume of cargo transported by trucks from China into Russia has dropped by 30% compared to the first 3 months of 2024. I've said before that every fifth transportation company has closed the doors in 2025, but the new number shows that the crisis is growing. Now, it's been 3 months. I talked about 2 months, January and February. Okay, 20% of the companies closed just in 2 months. But now it's been 3 months and the numbers are growing. The crisis is growing. And this is just the beginning. It's one of the phases of the economic tsunami. Imagine what's happened in the economy if all of a sudden 1/3 less goods to be transported. Just like that, instantly. And Russia gets most of the stuff sold in Russia from China. 1/3 off. Just like that. Now, a real quick news. The key interest rate is kept at 21% for at least 2 months. Next 2 months. I will talk more of the rate and its significance of the economy, for the economy soon. In one of the upcoming live streams, I do economic review of Russia or analysis of some events in the economy of Russia quite often, once a week at least, so please stay tuned. I will talk more of the key interest rate. And by the way, just to let you know, I have chosen a dozen or so news today, and I had about 50 news to choose from. 50 news that I found important for the last week. That happened in the last week. And there will be more, so many more news like that coming out of Russia every single day. If you want to keep up with other breaking news from Russia, consider becoming patron of Inside Russia, because every single day I carefully select and post 9 news that I find important with my commentaries analysis to my Patreon account. I'll keep you informed on everything you wanted to know about Russia, but didn't know where to ask. Now you know. Consider becoming patron Inside Russia. I'm going to place the link after this live stream ends in the pinned comment below and in the description. So consider doing that. The last news. This morning, another Russian general was blown up in Moscow. He was a target of a planned explosion. There was an explosive planted in a car that was parked right next to an apartment. He was the only victim. Yaroslav Moskalik, 59 years old, general of the Ministry of Defense. He was killed in a car explosion in Balashikha, Moscow today. The explosion occurred at around 10:40 a.m., late morning, when the general walked by a Volkswagen Golf car parked outside the apartment block where he lived. The explosion threw the general several meters away. There are video recordings, the footage of the explosion at different angles, so many different films, because there are so many security cameras. Large apartment building, and it's just filled with security cameras. So, but I'm not going to be showing you that, because it's pretty graphic stuff. A car explodes, and YouTube would ban me for that immediately. I will place the footage that I possess in the Telegram account of Inside Russia. So I'm gonna place a link down below after the live stream ends in the description. So go check it out. If you like it, if you like the updates I do on the Telegram channel, please consider becoming a subscriber. That's how I keep in touch with the subscribers of Inside Russia. So, and I also place the materials that I cannot place on YouTube. Yeah, there's tons of stuff like that. So who was this person, Moskalik, the General Moskalik? In 2021, Moskalik was the deputy chief of the main operational directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. Not much else is known of him at this point. Obviously, he participated in the war with Ukraine, and obviously he played some kind of important role. The KGB started investigating fast. They found much info of the car that was parked and filled with the explosives and exploded fast. They had the information basically very fast, almost immediately after the car exploded. And miraculously, in the afternoon, they found the suspect. They interrogated the suspect immediately, and he admitted his fault very fast. The KGB means business. The case is pretty straightforward. They know who, the neighbors told who parked the car, who owned the car. They know who bought the car, who drove the car, and, anyway. So this case seems pretty straightforward. But I have one uncomfortable question. Uncomfortable for the KGB. In Russia, people hear systematically that the KGB does an excellent job on catching potential terrorists. The terrorist acts are prevented by dozens. We hear every month, the KGB investigated, prevented, arrested, now it's safe. Yet, Russian generals, the most important people for Russian state right now, the people who should be safeguarded with all the resources that Russia has, right? No, I'm just saying, it makes sense. Yet, they keep getting blown up. General Moskalik is not the first one. First, it was General Kirillov. And now is General Moskalik. How that happens that the KGB prevents things in large numbers, at least what they report, where it doesn't really, we can't check them, right, for what they say. But they fail to prevent Russian generals getting blown up. What do you think of that? Carthago delenda est.